With this being the first video under the new Klinko Media banner, I wanted to make it a special video, and that's why it's just a coincidence that yesterday we got the announcement that the NHL will be resuming play on July 10th with a 3-week training camp before resuming the regular season, or doing the 24-team round-robin tournament in the first week in August. So with that being said, I wanted to dive in to the NHL, or give a video on the NHL a try. With that being said, let's just jump right into it. Now, I will admit that I have a limited basis of knowledge on the NHL, and, I might not have the same crazed fandom of other people, but I do know enough, I feel like, to have an educated point of view on the sport. So, let's start with the favorites for the season, and that is, according to various websites, it seems like the Boston Bruins and the Vegas Golden Knights are still the favorites with the highest odds to win the 24-team round-robin tournament. Will that play into this year's tournament? Well, there's really no way to know. I mean, the Vegas Golden Knights are finishing up their third season as a team, and every year they have defied expectations and done better than anybody could have expected for an expansion team, and really raised the bar for expansion teams when Seattle joins the fray, whenever that might be. As far as the Bruins, they are coming off a solid a pretty amazing season last year, going to the Stanley Cup Finals against the against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and really showing that age is just a number with their aging core from Chara, Patrice Bergeron, and Brad Marchand. As far as I apologize. It was the St. Louis Blues, not the Blue Jackets. They defeated the Blue Jackets in the second round. I knew they fought the Blue Jackets, but either way, they proved age was just a number, even though they came up short against the St. Louis Blues in the Stanley Cup Finals. They still showed that they are not meant to be taken lightly, especially when everything is clicking in a team full of veterans. As far as the Golden Knights, they're riding a wave of momentum that isn't going to go away anytime soon. At least they're proving that it might not. One team that has a lot of pressure on them because of the 24-team tournament, 24-team round robin tournament, is that the Tampa Bay Lightning has a high wave of expectations behind them, because the window is not going to stay open forever, and they gotta capitalize sooner rather than later on how good the team is. They have to capitalize, and especially with the fact of how last year went for them, being the best team in the league and getting eliminated by the Blue Jackets. They need to erase last year with something good this year. And one last team to mention is the Edmonton Oilers. because before the season went on a hiatus, the Oilers had the two top point leaders for the season, with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl leading the charge for the team with 110 points and 97 points. And in the reality of the situation is that if the season did not get cut short, Draisaitl would have caught up with Nikita Kucherov's record from last year, and maybe past Nikita Kucherov, with how good Leon Draisaitl was doing. With the fact that there was about a month left in the season and Draisaitl had 110 points, he would have no doubt passed Nikita Kucherov's 128 points that he set last year. And if this means anything for the Oilers, I'm not really sure about their defensive issues and if they've resolved their defensive issues, but if they can step forward, keep the momentum going, they're going to be a scary good team for years to come, as long as they can keep the core together. Yeah, it seems like they fixed their issues with the fact that they finished second before the season was suspended, or they were in second in the Pacific Coast League before the season was suspended. However, I don't think the expectations are too high for the Oilers. The expectations will rise depending on how Draisaitl and McDavid, as well as the other, highly touted prospects, adjust to coming back once the season resumes on July 10th with training camp. As far as further breakdowns, this is just this is just my first video on the NHL to test the waters of if this is something that I would feel confident continuing to create content about, or if this is something that maybe I should best avoid. Which I think at this point it is something that I feel like I could create content for in the future, more content for in the future, because again, I'm more confident in creating content about the NHL than the NBA or the NFL or MMA. So you'll be seeing a little bit more hockey content, especially as we draw closer to the July 10th training camp date. To select, as far as expectations for the round robin tournament, speaking from the perspective of a wrestling fan and the knowledge, where round robin tournaments, you just got to expect the unexpected. I know that what we're going to see in the NHL is different than anything we see in wrestling, but you just got to expect the unexpected, because this is unlike anything we have ever seen in the NHL before. And in a quote taken from a Stanley Cup of Chowder article, or StanleyCupOfChowder.com article, one of the unknowns surround how the warm-up round, or the warm-up round robin would impact the seeding of the top 4 teams in each conference. The NHL said that the results of the round robin would have an impact, but it hadn't nailed down the specifics as of a couple weeks ago. Today, however, Chris Johnson, an NHL reporter, is reporting that what would likely be the least palpable option for the Bruins is what the NHL is choosing. Essentially, the standings after the 3 games, after this 3-game per team mini tournament, will determine the seeds. This means that 3 games can go a long way toward undoing 70 for the Bruins and the other teams really. If the Bees go 0-3, they'll find themselves as the number 4 seed in the East, despite being 8, 10, and 11 points above the Lightning, Capitals, and the Flyers, respectively. The Bruins do get a bit of a benefit in that they will own the tiebreaker against any of the other teams based on points percentage. Another report indicated that home ice in the Stanley Cup Final will be strictly decided by points percentage, so that's another bonus. Is it a huge deal? No, not really. All of the top 4 teams will be equally rusty when chaos kicks off, and while it'd be great to be the number 1 overall seed, it's important to remember that home ice advantage doesn't exist this year. With every game being a neutral site game, a lot of benefits of being a top seed are moot. Things like having the first line change would be great, but the true comforts of home will be non-existent. To now mention the quote from Chris Johnson. Of note, on the NHL playoff format, the top 4 seeds in each conference will be determined by the results of the three-game round robin, with the regular season points percentage serving as a tiebreaker if needed. In my opinion, this is an interesting, this makes things a little bit more interesting, because you're not, because of the fact that the regular season did not end, you're allowing teams that may have had a chance to catch up to a team like the Bruins, who was in first place. You're giving them the opportunity to catch up that they would have had in the continuation of the regular season. If things change, we'll see what, as far as how the round robin is going to, as far as how the round robin is going to play out, there's no way to know. There is absolutely no way to know because it's never happened before. None of this has happened before. The one point that I would agree with is that because this season is going to be all about all the games are going to be played at a neutral site and without fans, a lot of the benefits that teams, especially a team like Vegas, had in having home ice advantage won't exist this year. You won't have to deal with the rabid fan base in Vegas or Tampa Bay or New York or Chicago or in Canada, especially in Canada. You won't have to deal with that because they won't exist. My point is, it's going to be unlike anything we've ever seen before, and in a way, it's going to be surreal. It's going to be surreal that hockey's going to be back in a great way. It's going to be where most people are going to have to pinch themselves to make sure that this is real, because I think to a point nobody expected hockey. We weren't sure when hockey was going to come back or if hockey was going to come back because of the close proximity to October when hockey normally restarts. But how they're going to figure it out, as long as the fact that hockey's coming back, and at least hockey and basketball are back, that's more than we can say for baseball. But I will say that once we hear about baseball, a little bit more about baseball, you'll be getting content on baseball here too. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The way I wanted to end this though is by looking at some players. I have the regular season point leaders list open on my computer screen, and I'm going to be clicking on random players just to see where their performance was in the 2020 season as compared to previous seasons, and expectations that might be there, in my opinion, based on their past performances. The first person I can see is Artemi Panarin. who in 69 games was putting together by far his best year to date in his first year with the Rangers. And, you know, based on previous performances, it might be his new, his clicking with his new team. It might be, the pressure of being in New York and him embracing the pressure of being in New York. It could really be anything, because in 79 games with the Blue Jackets in the 2018-2019 season, he had 87 points. In 69 games before the season was suspended, Artemi Panarin had 95 points, 32 goals, and 63 assists. Incredible numbers. But it seemed like a lot of people were having good years this year, as I mentioned before. Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. But Artemi Panarin may finally be finding his footing with the Rangers. It'll be interesting to see how he comes back when the season resumes, and if he can, and if when he shakes off the rust, he can go back to how the incredible if when he shakes off the rust, he can go back to clicking with his new team the way he was before the season was suspended. Now we head to South Florida and Jonathan Huberdeau, who in 82 games in the 2018-2019 season had 92 points, and in 69 games, once again before the season was suspended, had 78 points. There is no doubt in my mind that Huberdeau would have been on track to break, or to set his career high in goals, assists, and points. Because at about 20 more plus more games, there's no doubt in my mind he could have broken his 92 point career high that he had set previously the year before. In my opinion, if similarly to Panarin, it seems like Huberdeau might be finding I don't want to say they might be entering their primes, because I know with some hockey players, late 20s, early 30s is when you start, exiting your prime, especially with how young hockey players are nowadays, with McDavid being in his early 20s, with Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, Draisaitl, David Pastrnak, Nathan MacKinnon, all those guys being in their primes, in their early 20s, it's hard to say when your prime is, if you're a superstar at 22. Since this could be another video, I'm going to save other content. I'm going to save some of the content and click on a defenseman, and the defenseman I click on is John Carlson from the Washington Capitals, who has already set a career high in points with 75 points in 69 games, breaking his previous career high of 70 points in 80 games, which was set last year. I know John Carlson is one of the top defensemen in the league, so this is not out of the ordinary. And with a number of other defensemen not really being point getters, more or less being the enforcers, or the stable ground where some teams are built upon, it's rare that the Capitals should count themselves fortunate to have somebody like John Carlson around. With that being said, I will, you will be seeing, like I mentioned, you will be seeing a little bit more content with, the, centered around the NHL, and I will maybe do a little bit more research before I start, working with the content to know where I want to go with the video before I record the video. I did a little bit of research before this video started, as you could probably tell, but I did not necessarily, I pieced together the video as I went, because I just want to, this is just a test run to see how things went. Let me know down in the comment section below what you thought of the video, and what your expectations are, if you have any, of the 2020 24 team round robin tournament that we will be seeing, and the way we will be seeing the end of the 2019-2020 season. Also, let me know down in the comment section below your expectations, if you think that your favorite team's players can continue their unprecedented performances and their record-breaking performances, or career-high-breaking performances, that they were on pace to do before the season was suspended. But most importantly, let me know if you're happy that hockey's back July 10th. Like I mentioned, this was my first time tackling the subject of the NHL. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content just like this that you can only find right here, and a smattering of other things right here at Klinko Media. Don't mind me, I'm still working on the outro. Till next time.